single NFL playoff game since Super Bowl 50, Peyton Manning's last game. Key, let me throw it on the line for you here.
Drink some water, man.
Drink some water. Here we go.
Very emotional when I talk about the Broncos. It's very emotional because they're not going to get him, but we have to have this discussion anyway. But, okay. Carolina or Denver. Of the two, even though they seem to be, you never want to count out Tepper and his money. They seem to be longer shots. I'm going to call them long shots. Longer shots. Which seems to be the better landing spot if you were Deshaun Watson?
Make sure my mic work now.
Is it echoing? Are you echoing, Key?
They fixed it, I believe.
We also have our guest question, so you're going to be ready for the next segment as well.
I would think the two teams would be the Broncos, Carolina, but Carolina. It's just a better situation, a better fit, an offensive-minded head coach, Joe Brady calling plays.
That's big. People don't talk about that.
Well, it is, but is Joe Brady as magical as he was at LSU? I don't know that yet. So I don't want to put him on a pedestal. I know how we do. Oh, my God, he was magical coming from LSU. He learned under Sean Payton. They're going to be amazing. Well, their offense wasn't that great. It was okay. You could blame some of it on Teddy Bridgewater. You could blame some of it on Christian McCaffrey being hurt and not being in there and being available to them. So it's a better situation. They got a young offense that I think could potentially be dangerous when you got guys like Robbie Anderson who played well. Samuel's there. You can use him in a lot of different ways. Maybe they go out and they draft another guy. Defensively, they're a young defense that's aggressive, that's hungry, that stepped up a couple notches. Deshaun's from the area. He went to South Carolina. He's from Georgia, so he's right there. Mm-hmm. He understands the region, which is important. Yeah. And you're in a conference, or not even a conference, a division that right now has one quarterback that we all kind of can point to, and that's Tom Brady. Because we don't know what's going on in New Orleans, and we don't know what will happen in Atlanta with a new head coach. You got a new head coach in Atlanta with an aging quarterback in Matt Ryan, in Julio Jones at the receiver spot. We don't know what's going to take place at the quarterback spot in New Orleans, even though they got a great team. I would look to Carolina. Do I want to deal with Patrick Mahomes twice a year, maybe 3 times a year? No, I'd rather not.
It's the Mile House City. It's Denver, Zubin. I'm going to Denver if I'm Deshaun Watson. And I'll say this. On the offensive side of the ball, Cortland Sutton missed all last year, right? Top target. Jared Jeudy, I love it. Melvin Gordon, KJ Hamler, I like what I'm seeing there. And for anybody that would like to use the excuse, well, how about Vic Fangio? Do you want him as a head coach? Well, look, Sports Illustrated had him with the best odds to be the first coach fired next season. So what do I do? What do I do if I'm Deshaun Watson? If I want to have more say with the organization and work with a guy like Elway, I sit there and I say, okay, how do we snab a guy like Eric Bieniemy from somebody in our own division? How do we bring somebody like that to the Mile High City, and how do we get this team going in the right direction? And my only thing against the Panthers is if CMC is used in the trade to get a guy like Deshaun Watson, what weapons do I have to work with? That's my best weapon.
Well, here's what I would say about Deshaun making decisions of who's going to be the next head coach.
Being involved in the decision-making process, Key, not making decisions, but feeling like his voice is being heard with another legendary quarterback.
Being involved, making a decision, however we want to phrase it. You can't depend on something today, for tomorrow today, when you are Deshaun. I can't sit up there and be like, oh, I'm going to Denver because I may get Eric Bieniemy when there's going to be a number of job openings again, and who knows what happens at that stage, right? So you can't do that. I know Matt Rule's going to be in Carolina. And as far as getting somebody to replace Christian McCaffrey, if he's in the deal potentially to the Houston Texans, what I would say, and I know Zubin will cringe because he just, his connections to Denver and the McCaffrey family, he doesn't want to see McCaffrey on the move. I get it. He's a dominant player when healthy. But what does that really get you? What does it really get you? What has it got in Carolina? And he's going to put up great numbers for fantasy football. There's no question about it. But I can go and get an Alvin Kamara and do the same thing. I can find that guy in the lighter rounds. I can go get a Nick Chubb, a Kareem Hunt. I can find those guys. What's the young man down in Jacksonville? The running back.
Robinson.
I can find Robinson down in Jacksonville because if I'm putting him in a position, and I don't want my running back to account for 40% of my offense. I'm not looking for that. And so when you start to look at how you replace McCaffrey, running back positions, you can replace them all day long, man. All day long. And you can still get the same production. You may not get 1,000 receiving and 1,000 catching, but you can still get the production.
You know what's funny about that? It's funny we're talking about Denver and you say that, and I think it's well known to anybody that's followed the league for a long time. If there's any organization, and this is just proving Keith's point, that has cranked out 1,000-yard runners like they're nobody, it's the Denver Broncos. Tatum Bell, Olandis Gary, Terrell Davis. I mean, some of these guys, you've never heard of them before they got to Denver. Never heard of them. And they're cranking out 1,000-yard seasons. So you're right. And you could obviously make that happen anywhere.
It's not poo-pooing on McCaffrey.
Right.
It's just stating the facts. You can get productive backs and utilize them a certain way to get that production. Jay Will, if you look at Todd Gurley was shipped off in free agency to Atlanta. They went out and drafted a kid named Cam Akers from Florida State. And the running game didn't seem like it missed a beat for the LA Rams when they wanted to run the football. It didn't, to me, in my eyes, I'm like, okay. So when you give the football to somebody like a Christian McCaffrey, Alvin, okay, here's how I just end this one for you, Jay. What's the difference between Alvin Kamara, who went in the third round, and Christian McCaffrey, who went in the first?
Production-wise, nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, last thing I would say here. Go ahead, Jimmy.
But I guess I would just ask you guys both the question. If you're Deshaun Watson, do you want to go to a complete rebuild in Carolina?
Well, it's not. I wouldn't think Carolina's a complete rebuild.
It kind of is. I mean, it's on the verge of being. I mean, you're not. Matt Rule's a good coach. I think Matt Rule's a good coach, but it's still to be determined on whether he's going to be a great coach.
No, it's not a rebuild, Jay. Rebuild is the wrong word, buddy.
What's the word? What's the word?
One or two players away from competing within their division.
Well, that's kind of a rebuild.
No, man. They went out and I would say they exceeded some expectations with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. This is why they want to take the next step by getting a guy that they think could help them accomplish what they set out to do. Because Teddy, there were several games where Teddy, down the stretch, didn't finish the deal. They're looking for somebody to finish the deal that'll put them in position to get to 10 wins, to get to 11 wins. A few games away is what they were. Kansas City Chief game, they were a few plays away from beating Kansas City. So when you start to look at that, you say to yourself, much like the Rams, to a degree. The Rams said we were a few plays away from being the 1 seed in the NFC. And the quarterback was the problem, so we need to find a guy who we think can make those handful of plays to win those couple games that we needed.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Carolina's thinking.
Yeah, two more, by the way. They just keep coming off. Mike Anderson, Philip Lindsay. You can do it with anybody. Yeah. Here's the other thing to Key's point, though. The Panthers finished at 5-11. Key mentioned the close loss to the Chiefs. Yesterday, we got into the woulda, coulda, shoulda. Where could have the Pats been if the ball bounced this way or that way, or the ball didn't fumble this way or that way? To Key's point, Carolina was 5-11, but they also lost games by 1, 2, 3, and 4 points, right? Again, good teams win those games. Yeah. You upgrade at the quarterback position. Maybe you get half those games. Suddenly, you're 7-9 with the guy that had never coached in the NFL, and maybe you can start seeing.
And look, here's what I would say, Jay. I'm not comparing Deshaun Watson to Tom Brady, right? So let's not, as I say this, for the people out there on Twitter that are waiting to push send, just look at what happened with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They went and got a quarterback that can do enough to kick them over the top. And they won the Super Bowl, opposed to a guy that threw 30 interceptions the year before. All they did, in my opinion, was got a